This video brought to you by Utopia Computers. Leading the market in quality and innovation, Utopia Computers will build your dream PC at a great and competitive price. Use code CNERD at checkout to give a kickback to this channel and be sure to get the Utopia difference. Hello and welcome back to Emerald County! Ladies and gentlemen, today is part 29 of this Cities Skylines Let's Build series. And I have some news. Some news that we'll get to in just a moment. But first, what are we building today? Well, today we are expanding massively across the river. We have a lot of roads being placed, a lot of buildings being placed, and as you can see, another airport. Now, about this airport, it is quite small. It is not a huge airport, and that is gonna tie into the news that I want to talk about. But the reason this airport is quite small is because of the general scale of Emerald County, and that's something that I have been struggling with for the last couple of weeks. Ever since I decided to get the 81 tiles mod, I've been fighting with scale, basically. Because Emerald County was built very specifically to look like a county. That's why it's called Emerald County. I want to look at this from above and go, hey, there's one town, there's another town, there's the airport, there's a prison, there's a military base, there's the city that's at the heart of this county, and then there's other little villages and stuff around that. That was why everything was built kind of small. That's why Castle Rock is realistically the size of a small district in your average city. But I call it a town. Whereas if something like that was anywhere else, that would kind of just be a village. A bit of a big village maybe, but a village nonetheless. Castle Rock, realistically speaking, is very small. But in the scale that we're playing with in Emerald County, it's a decent-sized town, and that's okay. But with the 81 tiles mod, and I do believe I mentioned this as well, I mentioned that we can play with bigger cities. We can make Emerald City much, much bigger, and that is a thing we do. We absolutely do make this bigger, as you can see. You know, last episode proved that. This episode's going to prove that Emerald City is going to be bigger than it was originally going to be. And that's cool. I'm liking that. But, it doesn't actually work if we make Emerald City huge, and then we don't go and fix Castle Rock. So, I need to not change the scale. I need to stay true to the original vision of Emerald County, and that was an interesting realization to come to. The reason that was interesting is because I had this grand idea. I wanted this series to go a lot longer than it was originally going to. When it went on hiatus for a month, I said to myself it was going to come back for 4 episodes, 26, 27, 27, 28, 29, 30. And episode 30 would be the end. And then I decided that with the 81 tiles mod, I could go further. I could go to episode 40 or episode 50. But I've changed my mind. Episode 30, next week's episode, is going to be the conclusion to Emerald County. For a multitude of reasons, and I'm going to try and not ramble too much. I'll spend the next couple of minutes, maybe the next 2 minutes, explaining exactly why, and then if you want to go and dislike the video because the series is going to end, that's entirely on you, but I would at least like you to listen to my reasoning. There we go, words. So, I want to start another project. I don't want to stop Emerald County and then never do another city's creative project. In fact, I want to stop Emerald County and do another one right away. Like the week after, I want to go, here's the follow-up. Because I actually want to play with that scale. I want to make things bigger, but I also want to take things slower. I want to look at very specific parts of, rather than a county, a city. I want to just make an incredibly detailed, thought-out, planned, and beautiful city. If we place a high school I want to spend an episode detailing that thing. Get the football fields in there, the baseball, diamond or whatever. I want to detail that specific thing. If we place a hospital, then that's what we detail. A government district, that's what... I don't want to sort of just gloss over huge sections of the city. I want to make something that's more detailed than I've ever built before. And I feel like I can do that at this point. And I feel like that's what I wanted Emerald County to be. But I either wasn't good enough, or the project got away from me, or whatever happened. But that's not to say that I'm going to abandon Emerald County after next week. My plan for next week's episode is to make it the biggest episode of this series. If that means that it's going to be the longest episode, then so be it. But whatever happens, I want it to be the biggest episode thus far. So every detail that still needs finished after this episode, every building that needs placed, every road, every junction, every train, tram, or taxi, all of it, if it's not done in this episode, has to be done in the next one. So the next episode, if it's an hour or two, we are finishing Emerald County, and we're doing it properly. I'm not just going to walk away from this series and leave it unfinished because I told you I'd finish it. And I told myself I'd finish it, and that's what we're going to do. So, with that said, if you are not happy with that, I completely understand. Hopefully, I can win you back with whatever series follows Emerald County after next week. I will also take a moment to say that this episode is going out, this episode 29 is going out on the 16th of October 2016. As of this week, I'm aiming to have daily city skylines. Just want to throw that out there, so if you're mad, hopefully that's cheered you up a little bit. Vanilla with sprinkles, the slightly modded vanilla Let's Play, which is a contradiction in and of itself, is not going to be away for a week, coming back in a week, or starting in a week. It's starting sooner than that, which I really wanted to do, and I'm excited about. So with that in mind, let's talk about this episode. So, at the moment, we've just gone ahead and built an airport. We have helipads, we have decals, we have planes, we have hangars, we have the control tower, and now we're building a car park. And if you remember the previous episode, you might remember that I spent a very, very long time placing a lot of cars. Don't worry about that this episode. I place very few cars in this episode, which I'm sure you're glad to hear. And I'm certainly glad myself, because I didn't want to try and commentate 5 minutes of car placing time-lapse, because there's only so many times you can do that and say, yep, and we're placing a car. Yeah, and we're still placing cars. Good. Still play. Yeah. So, there's only so many times you can really commentate that. And, we don't do that this episode. In fact, we're not going to be doing that again, probably. I'm probably going to make a point of, like, cutting out the car placing time-lapse stuff in future, because I've done it a few times already. There's not much point showing you it over and over again. You get the idea, basically. I will say, I love this parking lot. I wanted this parking lot in this location, and I was originally not going to lower it down. And then I thought to myself, hey, maybe lowering it down is the best idea, because then the planes can sort of safely go overhead. And I really like, I was very conscious of how the planes are going to fly in this particular area. And you'll see that later on with the way I do the buildings in this area too. I decided that the area that the planes will be going over is going to be the Brooklyn-style buildings, so they're smaller. But then on either side, you have slightly taller buildings. Granted, there's a high-rise band, but they are still taller, so it sort of looks like a corridor for the planes to go through, which I thought was kind of a cool way to do things. It kind of works. You'll see it in a little bit. It looks interesting, at least in my opinion. Something else I did was, of course, getting some emergency services into the airport. A nice big fire department here. Of course, we're going to be putting some trucks around it. There's also going to be a police station going in here. There's actually a couple of police stations and a couple of fire departments that are going to be right by the airport, as well as some train stations later on, which I will admit were a bit of a later thought, and kind of almost an afterthought, but I really like how they turned out. And I sort of, I guess, over-engineered the way the train lines work. I kind of intentionally made them look a little complicated, a little messy, just so they'd look interesting rather than just doing something that was sort of go here, turn right, merge, go, blah, blah, blah. I wanted to make something that had layers to it, so some trains go under some lines. It doesn't look completely fake or fantasy or sci-fi or whatever, but it also doesn't just, yeah, you'll see it. There's no point in me trying to explain it with words. A picture speaks 1,000 words, and as I've said many times, this video's at 1080p 60. You're getting 60 pictures every second, so that's a lot of words. I might as well not even be commentating at this point because this video speaks many more words than I could speak in a second. Granted, people do like to tell me I speak very fast, which I do from time to time. It doesn't help that I'm really going on a tangent here, but whatever. It doesn't help that I'm trying something different for my commentary with this because I'm very tired. I do want to mention that I sat down to record this episode of Emerald County at about 9 p.m. last night, so Saturday the 15th. It is now 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. I wound up streaming from 9 p.m. until about, I don't know when, but almost 9 hours later, I was still live on the internet. Most of that time was playing Cities Skylines, about 90 minutes of that was playing Gears of War 4. So, I'm trying something different for my commentary to try and not sound like a lazy bum. I'm standing, and it's working. I feel good about this. I can jump. I don't know if you can hear that, but I can jump. That's the thing I can do in my commentary. And that's not something you can do if you're sitting. That's a fun fact for you there. You can't jump if you're sitting. Well, maybe not with that attitude, but anyway, that's something I just wanted to say in case people are wondering why I sound like I might be on a really unhealthy amount of Red Bull. Because I'm not on a really unhealthy amount of Red Bull. I'm actually drinking Lucozade. So there you go. Anyway, we are still on this car park, hence the bit of a tangent there. I did decide to add some actual roads around here so traffic can, in fact, go in there and drive around. And I'm kind of glad I did that because traffic does end up using the car parks. I also added these lines here myself, which aren't actually going down the middle of the actual road sections. So these lines are really just for the aesthetics. If you see vehicles driving on the roads around here, they don't follow the lines. But to be honest, I don't really care because when you look at the car park from above, it does just look better with the lines than it does without. Even if they are a bit messy, it just breaks up the massive gray block and the massive gray texture, which I'm not a huge fan of. I'm not a huge fan of that particular concrete texture, and quite a few people on the live stream were sort of mentioning as well that it's not the most pretty texture in the world, so I might look into replacing that before we wrap up next week, but no promises. I'm just going to focus on getting everything finished, which is going to be a monumental task, but I'm excited for it. I'm excited for the challenge. I've set myself this challenge and I'm going to do it. It's going to be good. So, we do end up spending a lot of time in this airport. This airport is possibly one of the most detailed areas in this entire county, in this entire project, and I'm not quite sure why. Because when I look at it, it doesn't immediately scream to me that this is the most detailed area, but then I sort of look at it some more and I'm like, oh, you know what? This is just nice. It just works. It just feels like it kind of belongs in this bit of land. I feel like taking the parking lot and putting it down lower really worked, and just the way the roads go and the way kind of everything just sort of worked. It was good. I really enjoyed building this airport, and just like little things like the police stations and the fire stations, just everything was just good. I don't know. It was weird. It was weird having a project like this because sometimes when I'm building, I get frustrated with myself, as I'm sure many of you get frustrated with my building as well. And in this particular case, I didn't. In this case, I just had fun with it, and I really enjoyed sort of where this is going to sound really artsy and a little bit full of myself, but bear with me. It's not supposed to sound like I'm full of myself, but I really enjoyed where my mind was taking me. You know, in that kind of just creative flow, it's like, yeah, we'll just place this here and detail it, place this here and detail it. It was a different way of building for me because I just didn't care. And that sounds really bad, but what I mean is I didn't care to make every little thing perfect. Because when it comes down to analyzing your environment, when it comes down to real life and just, this is, again, is going to sound really sort of full of myself and artsy and, oh, look at me, I'm deep and in touch with the universe. But what I mean is, it's the same logic I apply to building in The Sims. Make it look used and lived in, and like people actually exist in this world. So what I did was, I kept the imperfections. It was a way of just making things look a bit more natural. Not everything was this perfectly straight line. And I really enjoyed that. And that might sound like me covering for some dodgy placements here and there. And sure, in some places I'm totally guilty of that. But it's something I've noticed that a few people do here and there when they're building in cities as well. It's not just a thing, it's not just an excuse for me to be lazy. It is definitely a method to make things look lived in and used and accessible and like they're lived in. There's really no other way to put it. It's just as simple as that. It's like, hey, this thing shouldn't be clean and perfect and pristine. It's a train station. It's gonna be dirty. There's gonna be sand and gravel and grit and grime. And it's kind of the same with a lot of the areas that I had for open concrete. I used a lot of the decals just to add a little bit of subtle detail to make it look like, hey, there's some skid marks in this concrete. There's some dirt or some gravel or some water or whatever on this concrete. It's not just perfect. And to be fair, that is one thing I like about the concrete texture in this particular theme, which is that it does look a little bit dirty. It's just that it tiles so often that after a couple of seconds, you immediately notice that it's tiling very, very often. So that was kind of my process with this entire project. It was stop caring so much about everything being perfectly aligned and just make stuff. Just make it look kind of cool. Do what you can with what you're given and don't spend 30 minutes trying to perfectly place a line of bushes. And it worked. And I'm really happy with how this whole thing turned out. Now, what I will say is that this episode is, for me, when I was recording it, it felt a little bit all over the place. Watching it back, it doesn't feel as much all over the place, and I'm so glad because I was really, really worried that it would feel a lot more all over the place. I mean, it's a little bit all over the place, I'll be honest. You know, we jump from the airport to the train tracks, back to the airport to do this. You know, there's a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's kind of all over the place in a little in a while, in a way. There we go. I got the words. We're good. We are good. So it is a little bit all over. The point I'm trying to make, all right? The point I'm trying to make is that I'm happy with how this turned out. And that's why I'm excited to give myself the task of finishing Emerald County. Not abandoning it, not walking away, not quitting, but finishing it this week and showing you the finished project. I feel like I've been waiting for a long time to see what this is going to look like when it's done. And I feel like you've been waiting just as long. Maybe I've been waiting a week longer because I recorded the first episode like a week before it went out. So I've been waiting a little bit longer, but not enough to really, you know, brag about it. But the point is, I don't want to drag out this series any longer because I have a lot of ideas that I want to implement, but that I just can't really implement without drastically changing the entire design of Emerald County and drastically changing the scale and just making something that I don't personally think would fit with the style of this build. So next week we'll wrap it up. This will be available on the Steam Workshop along with an up-to-date mod list, which is something people have been asking for a long time. And I should say about the mod list, I have posted mod lists before, and I frequently get people commenting after they download them saying that their game has stopped working. It might very well do that. And I just want to say that right off the bat, if your game stops working with my mod list, not my fault. It barely works when I'm using it, so, and I'm running a beast of a PC, so if your PC's not a monster, you might have some trouble with the mod list and with loading Emerald County, but hopefully some of you can at least load it up and have a look around. Anyway, as you can see, we have built a sort of almost rest stop slash Carphone warehouse slash taxi depot slash McDonald's right by the airport. Kind of inspired by what we did before with the previous airport, where we did the car dealerships, and there was a McDonald's back there. But, you know, not identical, obviously. Now, what we're doing at this point is going ahead and adding in a whole bunch of roads, which are replacing the roads that were in here originally, and my throat is doing all sorts of funky stuff. But these roads are replacing the roads that I placed at the end of the previous episode, because I wanted to make something that just felt not organic, because everything is angular, but I wanted to make something that didn't necessarily conform to the same grid across a massive, massive area. So there are grids, because this city is very, very, very loosely based on New York. There are grids, but they're on different angles, they're different sort of scales, different lengths and widths, and then there's diagonal roads here. It's kind of similar to what we did with the new Emerald City. We added some grids, but added some diagonal roads and did some different sizes of roads. It just works, and I'm happy with it. I also used the Move It mod to move that pillar there, and that was particularly cool to do, because I've heard all sorts of good things about that mod, and I can, in fact, confirm all sorts of good things about that mod. It's pretty great, if I do say so myself. I did actually want to enable a couple of new mods for this recording. I didn't really get the chance to, though, because, well, I tried, but they sort of didn't work. I was going to have fine road heights enabled, but it seemed to conflict with the zoning toggle mod, which wasn't working at all during this recording. So there's actually a lot of areas where there should be buildings. I just can't really do the buildings the way I'd want to do them. So that's something I'm going to have to look into. I'm going to have to fix that and get the zoning toggle mod working again, because I kind of need it. But hopefully that's a thing we can do, and hopefully that is a thing that's going to be easy enough to fix, because I'd really like to. And if I can get that fixed, I can make some nicer roads. Anyway, we are going ahead and adding a whole bunch of zoning to this area. I'm not entirely sure why, but I have just realized that I don't add any office zoning to this space whatsoever. It's all residential and all commercial. And I just don't know why, because offices would have been a nice little addition to this area. Now I'm going ahead here and making it all one district. That's because originally this was all going to be made up of that Brooklyn style of building, in that it was all going to be kind of low and small and short. And then I realized that maybe I don't want to do that. Maybe I want some height variation, because that is something that's been wrong with Emerald County for a while. Before we get back to that, this is something I've wanted to do for a while. I wanted to get a car crash in here. I wanted to get something that looked just interesting and different, and I wanted to get a car crash on this particular road because it's a very busy road. I had to play with lanes a little bit, but I got my traffic cones in there. I got some more traffic cones in there. I got some signs redirecting traffic. There's a police car in there. There's an ambulance. There's a fire truck because there's going to be smoke coming off the cars. It was cool. And I'm going to be honest, I'm pretty sure I've done this before in Emerald County. I just can't remember if it was in the city and I deleted it already, or if it's elsewhere. I know I did construction in the city and I know it's gone. And I know I've already got a construction site or two elsewhere in the county as well, but I don't know if I still had a car crash. So I decided to go ahead and just add this, because it's a very busy road, and it looks kind of cool. The smoke there obviously means we need that fire truck, and I like it. I really do. It's just, it's something different, something a bit interesting, and it just breaks up an otherwise standard intersection, really. So with that done, it was time to go ahead and get back to the road placement, which, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really plan. I sort of looked at a lot of these roads and just decided to wing it, really. I just wanted to make some grids, but have them at different angles, like I was saying before, and just make something a bit different. That was pretty much my goal. Make something that's just a grid, but different. And that's not as challenging as I could make it out to be, because you just take a grid and sort of tilt it a little bit, but I'm happy with how this turned out. I really am. There's so many spaces I still need to detail, and that's going to be easier if I can turn off the zoning on roads, if I can get that mod working again, but if I can't get the mod working, there's going to be so many beautiful areas of parks and plazas and obviously all custom because it's me. But I'm so excited for the final product here, and I feel like I'm more doubly excited about it because it is now within reach, because it is just a week away. It's a couple of days away from me, because I'll need to have the whole thing finished within a couple of days and then edit and commentate and do all that stuff. But with that final project being within my reach, I'm so excited to see where this ends up. And I really do sincerely hope that people enjoy the final product. That's kind of always a scary thought. It's like, hey, how do we actually end this series? Okay, we'll do it this way. It's not the best way to do it, but we'll do it. But what if it's not good? That's kind of the next concern. That's the next worry, but I'm confident I can make something good out of this. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, there's not really going to be much more for today's episode. There are going to be a bunch of cinematics at the end of this to show off what we've built today and make it look all purdy and stuff. But other than that, really, there's not much more to it. There is some decoration to be done to the side of the train station. I do, of course, need to add in the taxi terminal, and I decided to add some big buildings and just make it look like there was some stuff going on beside this big old train station. So a gas station was obviously quite important. It's a bit of a big parking lot there, but it's all good. Nice big parking lot for the people at the train station or the gas station or whoever is about. You know, they can use this parking lot, I suppose. Just no parking for more than 2 hours, or otherwise your vehicle may get clamped. So, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, like I said, there's not really much more to show you for today. A little bit more detailing to the side of the train station that you will get to see in the cinematics. But with that said, thank you kind of for watching. This has been part 29 of City Skylines and Let's Build Emerald County. And I'll see you next time. And next time is going to be the last time we're building in Emerald County. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.